Lebanese environmental activist Mona Khalil, whose work helped turn a stretch of coastline in southern Lebanon into one of the eastern Mediterranean's most important nesting sites for endangered sea turtles, has died after being wounded in an Israeli strike. Khalil, 76, was injured when her house on Mansouri Beach, near the southern city of Tyre, was hit during Israeli attacks in southern Lebanon 2 weeks ago.
New Delhi, India. On a searing hot afternoon in a dense working-class neighbourhood of the Indian capital, Shehnaz Bano sits on the dilapidated floor of her one-room home, deftly stitching pieces for a new leather jacket to make each piece a sleeve, a front or back panel or a shoulder yoke. The 38-year-old mother of 2 teenage sons spends hours but is paid a mere 100 rupees, about wonder, for each piece.
Pakistan says talks between the United States and Iran, which were postponed on Friday, will begin in Switzerland on Sunday, as Tehran announced it was again closing the Strait of Hormuz because of continued Israeli attacks in Lebanon. Iran's foreign ministry spokesman, Esmail Baghai, confirmed on Saturday that an Iranian delegation, including Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and other senior officials, was heading to Switzerland.
Google has started rolling out Android 17 to eligible Pixel devices, while other smartphone manufacturers are expected to begin releasing their updates in the coming months. Most companies have not yet published official Android 17 eligibility lists. The devices listed below are therefore based on their existing software update policies and expected rollout plans.
Police in Scotland said on Saturday that counter-terrorism officers were investigating several violent attacks the previous evening in Edinburgh that injured 5 men in suspected anti-Muslim incidents. Police Scotland said a 36-year-old white Scottish man had been arrested and that there was no further threat to the public. Footage posted online roaming streets showed a bare-chested man roaming streets of the Scottish capital with a large weapon. Abed Hakim rebuilt his home when it was damaged in a conflict between Israel and Hezbollah in 2024, but is at a loss now that most of his village has been destroyed in Israel's latest round of strikes. Where his house once stood in Clayle is now rubble, where his garden bloomed. Dust, with more dust covering the toys and furniture strewn around the remains of his living room. The Iranian military says it has closed the Strait of Hormuz again over Israel's attacks on southern Lebanon. Iran said Israel's continued attacks in Lebanon are a breach of Tehran's agreement with the US to end the war.
Bogota, Colombia. He had the look of a middle-aged schoolteacher. His back seemed slightly sloped, a grey cardigan hung from his shoulders, and a pair of glasses were perched atop his nose. But as Ivan Cepeda waded through the crowds at a surprise rally on June 3 in downtown Bogota, young supporters thronged to see him.
The growing rift between the United States and Israel hit new heights this week, with articles published in major Israeli publications accusing President Donald Trump of abandoning Israel to its greatest following his interim deal with Iran.
Analysts described a sense of betrayal as public and political outrage over the terms of the agreement, which details the broad terms for ending the joint US-Israeli war on Iran dominated headlines.
Bolivian President Rodrigo Paz has declared a state of emergency, which gives the military the power to remove blockades that have disrupted food and fuel supplies. Barricades that have been erected on key roads have effectively isolated the administrative capital, La Paz, after a wave of protests calling for Paz to step down over austerity measures have brought the economy to a halt during the past 50 days.
John Jumper, who shared a recent Nobel Prize in Chemistry, announced Friday that he's making the leap to Anthropic after nearly 9 years at Google DeepMind. In a post on X, Jumper wrote that DeepMind CEO Demis Hassabis took a real chance letting me lead the AlphaFold team just 6 months after finishing my PhD. And the entire GDM team taught me so much about how to do great science. The government has withdrawn its earlier decision to temporarily reduce speed limits on motorways and national highways, restoring the previous limits for all categories of vehicles. According to Motorway Police spokesperson Syed Imran Ahmed, the speed limit for cars and other light vehicles on motorways has been restored to 120 kilometres per hour, while passenger and heavy transport vehicles will once again be allowed to travel at up to 110 kilometres per hour.
Islamabad. The Senate Secretariat has terminated all fuel conservation and additional austerity measures with immediate effect and will return to a regular 5-day work week with full staff strength from June 22. Monday, the rollback comes following a US Iran deal and a subsequent reduction in fuel prices. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni fired back at US President Donald Trump on Saturday, saying his constant unprovoked attacks are senseless, after he escalated a diplomatic row by accusing her of repeatedly seeking a photograph with him. The clash has opened an unusually personal rift between Trump and one of Europe's most prominent right-wing leaders, who had sought to cast herself as a bridge between Washington and the continent during Trump's return to power.
Bolivian President Rodrigo Paz has declared a state of emergency after weeks of protests demanding his resignation. The move would give Paz broader powers to clear roadblocks by demonstrators, which have caused serious shortages of basic goods and paralysed large parts of the nation.
United States President Donald Trump has doubled down on criticism of Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, claiming she repeatedly sought photo opportunities with him at the recent G7 summit to bolster her domestic popularity. Trump's latest comments in a post on Truth Social on Saturday deepen a personal row between Trump and the right-wing top allies leader, who was long viewed as one of the US president's top allies in Europe.
Chinese AI company Z.AI has released GLM 5.2, a 753 billion parameter open-weight model designed for autonomous coding and long-running engineering tasks. The model supports a stable 1 million token context window and is available through Hugging Face, Z.AI's API, and more than 20 third-party coding tools.
Chinese memory chips are beginning to enter mainstream RAM products as local manufacturers expand production and global demand from artificial intelligence data centers puts pressure on memory supplies. Several Chinese memory vendors have reportedly shifted towards domestic suppliers, such as Changxin Memory Technologies, better known as CXMT.
Rockstar Games has confirmed that pre-orders for Grand Theft Auto 6 will begin on June 25. Players can already add the game to their wish list on the PlayStation Store and Microsoft Store to receive a notification when pre-orders become available.
Gilgit. PPP supporters block the Karakoram Highway. KKH in Diama in protest after the Election Commission notified independent candidate Imam Malik on Friday night, allegedly without preparing Form 49 or counting postal votes in this constituency. Supporters of PPP candidate Atollah Khan, who contested the GBA 16 Diama 2 election, blocked the KKH at multiple locations in Chilas. The blockade began around 10 a.m. on Saturday and remained ongoing as of Saturday evening. US President Donald Trump has hit out at Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, repeating his claim that she asked over and over for a picture of them together at the G7 summit this week. In a post on Truth Social, Trump also accused her of not supporting US efforts to deny Iran from obtaining or developing a nuclear weapon.
An unauthorised alert bearing a mysterious message that was sent to cell phones in several states across Brazil on Saturday morning is suspected to be the work of hackers. The Brazilian government said devices lit up with the word misanthropy 4, an alphanumeric spelling of the Portuguese word misantropia, which in English translates to misanthropy. The final letter A was substituted with a number 4, a practice often used by hackers and termed leet speak.
Wife of Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has been barred from travelling abroad as she prepares to face trial on corruption charges. Investigating Judge Juan Carlos Peinado issued the ruling on Saturday, ordering Sanchez's wife, Begona Gomez, to hand in her passport and appear in front of court twice per month until a verdict is issued. She is charged with embezzlement, influence peddling, corruption in business dealings, and misappropriation of funds.
At least 9 people remain in critical condition after 2 passenger trains crashed into each other and killed 1 driver near Bedford, about 56 miles, 90 kilometres north of London. British Transport Police said on Saturday that more than 80 people had received hospital treatment on Friday night after the trains collided. While Apple's new Siri AI and Apple Intelligence announcements dominated the WWDC spotlight earlier this month, the tech giant also packed iOS 27 with a number of upgrades across its everyday apps and services, including smarter bill splitting in Apple Wallet, new ways to share locations in Find My, and improved Apple Maps features. Apple introduced an improvement to Flyover, the feature that provides immersive 3D views of cities and landmarks. The feature has been refreshed with more detailed visuals and smoother navigation.
The IT Ministry on Saturday clarified that a bill seeking amendments to telecommunication laws does not propose compulsory acquisition of private land. The Pakistan Telecommunication Reorganisation Amendment, Bill 2026, which seeks changes to a 1996 Act and was tabled by IT Minister Shahza Fatima Khawaja, was approved by the National Assembly on June 11th by a majority vote. It is currently pending before the Senate Standing Committee on IT and Telecommunication, where it was referred on June 15. At least 30 people have died since the start of May in one camp for displaced civilians in northeastern Congo, a death rate that camp officials said was unprecedented, with some confirmed to have died from Ebola, in a sign the disease could be spreading fast there. It was not possible to confirm the causes of all the deaths because patients or their relatives in Kigon's camp in Bunia, the epicentre of the Ebola outbreak in Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, had until Thursday refused testing, a camp spokesperson and aid organisation Caritas said.
The Foreign Office, on Saturday, announced that technical-level talks, as a follow-up to the signing of the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, will be held in Bürgenstock, Switzerland on Sunday. Thursday proved to be a red-letter day for Pakistan, as the country awoke to news of a long-awaited peace deal finally being signed between the US and Iran, heralding an end to the bitter animosity that has afflicted the Middle East and plunged the world into crisis for months.
British Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper has condemned remarks by Israel's right-wing National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, who posted all of Lebanon must burn after 4 Israeli soldiers were killed in a Hezbollah attack. In a post on X on Friday, Cooper said the comments were horrendous and abhorrent.
Tehran, Iran's supreme leader Mojtaba Khamenei's reservations about his country's interim peace deal with the United States have emboldened the country's hardline political grouping, which opposes any concessions with Washington. Iran's new supreme leader appears to have handed responsibility for the deal over to President Masoud Pezeshkian, a relative moderate who is now under fire from a more hardline camp that believes war with the US could restart soon.